I remember the exact moment everything changed. It was a Saturday night at the Riverside Hotel ballroom. Champagne glasses clinking, laughter echoing off the walls. My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, was up there at the podium, one hand in his pocket, flashing that smile that had fooled everyone in that room. The newly promoted senior vice president. And I was standing in the back, holding divorce papers in a manila envelope, watching security approach him. I watched his face go pale. I watched the glass slip from his hand and shatter against the marble floor. Some of you watching right now are probably thinking, that's absolutely cruel, ruthless. Who serves divorce papers at their spouse's promotion party? And you know what? A year ago, I would have agreed with you. But by the time that envelope reached his hands, he had already orchestrated his own destruction. I just made sure he'd have an audience when it fell apart. Let me take you back, because this isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about what happens when you mistake someone's patience for weakness and decide to exploit them selfishly. But before I tell you what he did, you need to understand who I was before all of this. My name is Sarah. I was 32 years old when I married Michael McAllister. And I want to be honest with you. I was the kind of woman who believed in loyalty. Not naively, not ignorantly, but with purpose. My parents had a strong marriage, 37 years and counting. I grew up watching them weather storms together, financial hardships, health scares, misunderstandings. And I learned something fundamental. Marriage requires sacrifice. When I met Michael at a corporate networking event in 2018, he was charming, not in a flashy car salesman way, but genuinely thoughtful. He remembered things I said. He asked follow-up questions. He laughed at my jokes, the real ones, not the nervous ones. We married in 2 years later in 2020. I was fully employed at Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm. Michael worked at Pinnacle Financial Group, a larger corporation with more prestigious clients. We were both doing well. We bought a house in the suburbs, put down a 20% down payment, and signed a 30-year mortgage together. Those first 2 years felt like a commercial for married life. We'd cook dinner together on weekends. We'd take road trips to visit national parks. We'd talk about having kids in a few years. But here's what I didn't see coming. In 2022, Michael got a new boss. Her name was Victoria Hartwell, and she wasn't just ambitious, she was calculating. Victoria saw potential in Michael, raw, moldable potential. She began mentoring him, guiding him. But the guidance came with an unspoken cost. The late nights at the office started appearing in our calendar. Just once a week at first, then twice, then 4, sometimes 5 nights a week. I'd ask him about it. He'd say, "This is my shot, Sarah. This is how people move up in finance. You have to show dedication." I believed him. His salary increased by 30% that first year. We used the bonus to renovate the kitchen, then the master bedroom. We took a trip to Barcelona. I told myself, this is what it looks like when you build something together. But the cracks were already there. I just didn't know what to look for yet. By 2023, Michael had essentially moved into the office. He'd leave at 6 a.m. before I woke up. He'd come home at 11 p.m. or midnight. Sometimes he wouldn't come home at all. He'd say he'd fallen asleep at his desk. I'd ask why he didn't just come home to our bed. He'd say, "You don't understand how business works, Sarah." And that's when something shifted in me, not toward anger yet, but toward something quieter, confusion, because I did understand how business worked. I'd been in the consulting field for 8 years. I'd never needed to spend 14-hour days in an office 5 days a week. There were strategies for efficiency, delegation, time management, but when I suggested these things to Michael, he'd dismiss them. "You just don't get it," he'd say. Then, one night in March 2023, I found something. I wasn't snooping. Not intentionally. His laptop had died, and he'd asked me to send an email on his behalf to a client. When I opened his email, his instant messaging app was still open. and there was a conversation thread with Victoria. My hands went cold as I read it. "Can't wait to see you tonight," Victoria had written at 5:47 p.m. Michael's response, "Hotel or your place?" Victoria responded, "Your place. He won't be home until late. I can leave by 11. That he was me. My own husband was hiding another woman in our house. I closed the laptop. I sat on the bed, and I felt a cold surge inside me that I'd never felt before. Not the dramatic shattering you see in movies. This was quieter, like a hairline fracture spreading through glass, invisible at first, but weakening the entire structure. I should have left that night. Part of me knew that, but there was a mortgage. There was a life built on assumptions that were now crumbling. There were 28 months of monthly payments I'd be making alone if I divorced him immediately, and I needed to know for certain. So I did something I'm not proud of. I created a new email address and set up location tracking on Michael's phone. I photographed financial documents. I recorded conversations where he lied directly to my face about working late. I wasn't building a case against him yet. I was just trying to understand how deep the betrayal went, and with every new piece of information, I felt my decision calcifying. This man had taken my loyalty and weaponized it. He'd used my trust as a tool. He'd rewritten the rules of our marriage without my consent, then blamed me for not understanding the game. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because the betrayal had layers, and I didn't understand the full scope until much later. Let me walk you through the escalation, because this is important. This isn't a story about one terrible act. It's a story about someone testing boundaries, and when they found none, pushed further. 3 months after I found the messages, Michael sat across from me at our kitchen table and said he wanted to take a work trip to San Francisco. Just him. 3 days. Talked about some client presentations. I asked for the details. Client name? Pinnacle Financial wasn't a typical San Francisco client for him. He got defensive immediately. "You're always questioning me," he said. "This is exactly the kind of energy that makes me feel unsupported." So I stopped questioning. I drove him to the airport myself. Kissed him goodbye. He wasn't in San Francisco. I found the credit card charge 3 weeks later when I was reviewing our statements for our accountant. A hotel in downtown Boston. 2 nights. Room charged to his corporate card. When I asked him about it, he had an answer ready. "Oh, right. I forgot to mention. The meeting got rescheduled last minute. It was actually Boston, not San Francisco. I didn't want to stress you out about the change in plans." He didn't mention the second room key on the credit card charge. The minibar charges at 1:47 a.m. This was very painful for me, because it felt like I was beginning to lose trust for him, but I decided to let it go. Not because I was a coward or naive, but because I valued what we had more than the ill feeling I got in my stomach from his inconsistencies. Again, in August, Michael came to me and said we should consolidate our finances. I was keeping my salary separate from his, a decision I'd made early in our marriage, just for security. "It looks like we don't trust each other," he said. "I want to merge everything. Full transparency." It sounded romantic. It sounded like what a committed marriage should look like. So we merged our accounts. Within 6 weeks, he'd transferred $47,000 to a business investment opportunity that Victoria had supposedly brought to him. He did this while I was at a work conference in Atlanta. I didn't even know about it until the bank called about unusual activity. When I asked him about it, he said it was an investment in a real estate partnership. It would mature in 18 months. We'd make significant returns. I asked to see the documentation, the contract, the LLC filing. He got defensive, said I was being paranoid, said this is what successful couples do. They trust each other with financial decisions. But I didn't consent to this decision, I told him. "You consented when you merged the accounts," he replied. He was technically right, and he knew I knew it. The money was gone. I never saw a single documentation file. Not one. By October 2023, the late nights had transformed into something different. Michael wasn't even pretending anymore. There was a firm dinner, a gala where Pinnacle Financial celebrated its top performers. I was invited, of course. I was supposed to be there as Michael's wife. I went. I wore a navy dress that I'd bought specifically for the event. I'd gotten my hair done. I felt beautiful. I felt like I was going to stand next to my husband and celebrate his achievements. And I did stand next to him for 20 minutes. Then Victoria arrived, and Michael excused himself to network. He spent the rest of the evening talking to her. And I mean talking, laughing with his head tilted back, putting his hand on the small of her back when they walked to the bar, leaning close so she could whisper something in his ear. Everyone saw it. Later, a woman from his office, I think her name was Jennifer or so, I can't quite remember, approached me at the coat check. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for what that is, for what everyone knows." I asked her what she meant. "They don't hide it at the office," she said. "Everyone knows about them. We've all been pretending not to notice for months." So my husband wasn't just unfaithful. He was publicly unfaithful, brazenly so, in a way that everyone around him had accepted, normalized, even protected. I went home that night and sat in the dark for 3 hours, and then I started planning. The moment the thought came and I decided to serve him with divorce papers at his promotion party came on a Tuesday in late November 2024. Michael came home with news that he'd been promoted. Senior Vice President. Victoria had recommended him. His bonus would be substantial. The firm was throwing him a party at the Riverside Hotel. It would be huge. Black tie. All the executives would be there. He asked if I wanted to come, and something in me snapped. Not in an angry way, in a clear way. This man had betrayed me with his boss, lied to my face repeatedly, stolen from our joint finances without my consent, publicly humiliated me in front of his colleagues, gaslit me when I asked questions about any of it, and now he wanted to parade me in front of his peers as his supportive wife while he celebrated a promotion that was contingent on his affair. I thought about confronting him at home, yelling, demanding answers, asking what I'd done wrong, as if any of this were somehow my fault. But that's what he expected. That's what every other betrayed spouse does. I was going to do something different. I was going to take his moment of glory and turn it into a moment of reckoning. And I was going to do it legally, methodically, and publicly enough that he'd never be able to rewrite the narrative afterward. After that Tuesday conversation, I had exactly 3 weeks to prepare. I needed to work fast, but I needed to work smart. The first thing I did was hire a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a family law attorney named David Rothstein who specialized in infidelity cases and asset protection. I met with David on a Wednesday afternoon at his office in downtown Portland. I brought everything: the screenshots of text messages, the hotel receipts, the credit card statements showing the $47,000 transfer, the recording of Michael admitting he'd lied about the San Francisco trip. David listened to all of it. He didn't take notes. He just listened. When I was done, he leaned back in his chair and said, "This is going to be expensive, both financially and emotionally. But you have a strong case, particularly the financial manipulation. In Oregon, that constitutes financial abuse. Can you file for divorce?" I asked. "I can file for divorce tomorrow," he said. "But if you're asking whether you should surprise him at his party, the answer is no. That's not a legal strategy. That's theater." I told him about the party, about wanting to do it publicly. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Serving someone papers at their promotion party is unconventional. It's going to make you look vindictive. It's going to give him narrative ammunition. He'll tell people you're cruel, unhinged, and juries respond to narrative. What if we did it so it couldn't look any other way?" I asked. David raised an eyebrow. "Explain," he said. "Here's what I explained to him. Michael's promotion party was semi-public. It was a company event, but it wasn't a massive public spectacle. Maybe 150 people would be there, mostly his firm's employees and clients. But those 150 people all knew him. They all knew his work. And more importantly, they all knew Victoria. If I served him with papers at the party, everyone would want to know why. And the why would come out. Because Victoria would be there. Because the timing would feel deliberate. And in that moment, Michael would be forced to make a choice. He could accept the papers quietly and leave the party, or he could create a scene. If he created a scene, it would confirm everything. His infidelity, his dishonesty, his entitlement, all witnessed by the people who mattered most to his career and reputation. If he accepted them quietly, everyone would still wonder. And the wondering would spread through the firm like a rumor. Either way, he couldn't control the narrative. David listened to this, and then he said something rather amusing. You're not just serving him papers. You're removing his ability to lie about why you're doing it. Exactly, I said. He nodded slowly. It's not standard practice, but it's not illegal, and it's not cruel, not given what he's done. If you're sure, I'll do it. I'm sure, I said. Then here's what we need to do. Over the next 3 weeks, David and I executed a plan so detailed that it felt like a military operation. Step 1, build the case. David sent a formal discovery request to Michael's email address, asking for all financial documentation related to the $47,000 transfer. Michael, thinking it was a routine business request, David's email was purposefully vague, complied. He sent over bank statements, account transfers, everything we needed. That documentation, combined with the other evidence, gave us a fortress. Michael couldn't later claim I'd stolen the information or been dishonest about how I obtained it. He'd voluntarily provided it. Step 2, file strategically. David filed the divorce petition and all supporting documents with the court. But he filed them in a way that Michael wouldn't be notified until after he'd been served in person. This is the key detail. If Michael had received notification electronically, he'd have days to prepare a response, to spin a narrative, to contact witnesses. By serving him at the party, we ensured he had no time to prepare, no way to control the story. Step 3, the divorce papers. David drafted the divorce petition and the property division agreement. Here's what made it brilliant. We didn't ask for anything excessive or vindictive. I requested 50% of all marital assets accumulated during our marriage, primary residence, which was fair given I'd paid 40% of the down payment and a significant portion of the monthly payments. Child support would apply if we had children. We didn't. Spousal support for 2 years while I transitioned my career if needed. The financial manipulation of the $47,000 was documented. It was listed as marital waste, a legal concept that essentially means Michael spent marital assets on an affair. He would be responsible for reimbursing that amount. This wasn't vindictive. This was fair. And fairness is harder to argue against than cruelty. Step 4, secure the house. 3 days before the party, David filed an additional document with the court, a restraining order on the marital home. This meant Michael couldn't remove any assets from the house, and he couldn't prevent me from accessing it. But he wasn't notified about this until after he was served the divorce papers. Step 5, the logistics. The party was on Saturday at 8 p.m. I purchased a dress, not something vindictive or celebratory, something professional but elegant. Navy again, armor, which is humorous in a way. David hired a process server, a professional who specializes in delivering legal documents. His name was Marcus. Marcus had served thousands of people in formal and informal settings. He knew how to do this without causing a scene, while still ensuring everyone knew what was happening. The plan was simple. I would arrive at the party at 8:30 p.m. after the initial cocktails and mingling. I would position myself on the perimeter, visible but not conspicuous. Once Michael's boss called him up for his acceptance speech, around 8:45 p.m., Marcus would approach him. Marcus would hand him the envelope with his name on it. Michael would open it in front of his colleagues. I would already be heading toward the exit. The goal wasn't to humiliate him. The goal was to ensure that his moment of celebration couldn't exist separate from his moment of reckoning. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I lay in our bed. I kept thinking all over again and again, examining my emotions and rehearsing the possibilities in my head. I felt a strange mix of emotions. I was terrified. Serving someone with divorce papers is a point of no return. It's the moment where you officially transform a marriage from broken into ended. But I was also calm, because I wasn't acting from anger or pain. I was acting from clarity. Michael had made choices, not mistakes. Choices, deliberate, calculated choices to betray, manipulate, and disrespect me. And I was simply removing his ability to pretend he hadn't. That's not cruelty. That's honesty. Sometimes honesty looks harsh when the truth has been hidden for so long. The next morning, I texted Michael, "I'm looking forward to tonight. I want to be there to celebrate with you." He texted back, "Great. See you at 8. Love you." I stared at that "love you" for a long time. That day was just a normal day for me. I didn't go to work as I'd taken excuse from work the previous day. I just needed more time for me to really move on from my own emotions, which momentarily felt like they'd betray me. I really loved Michael, and all these made me realize how much I still cared about him. But his betrayal and nonchalant attitude towards my own emotions woke me up from that fantasy. At dusk, I started preparing for the party. I arrived at the Riverside Hotel at 8:27 p.m. The valet parking was chaotic, luxury cars everywhere, valets in white gloves, the kind of scene that screams important people in important moments. I walked through the lobby into the grand ballroom, and it was exactly as Michael had described. Crystal chandeliers, white linens, a string quartet in the corner, people in every corner you look in formal wear, champagne in hand, celebrating the ascension of someone they didn't truly know. Michael was across the room, holding court with a group of executives. He wore a tailored black suit and that smile. That same smile that had made me fall in love with him 4 years ago. For a moment, I almost faltered. Then I saw Victoria. She was standing to his left, her hand occasionally touching his arm, proprietary and casual in a way that made it clear to anyone paying attention exactly what they were. And I felt the moment crystallize. This was the right thing to do. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I couldn't keep pretending this was something it wasn't. I positioned myself near the entrance, where I could see the stage but wasn't immediately visible to Michael. At 8:43 p.m., Harrison Webb, Pinnacle Financial's CEO, took the microphone. "We have a special announcement tonight," he said, his voice projecting easily across the room. "A promotion that represents our firm's commitment to developing the next generation of leadership." Michael's boss, Sarah Chen, walked toward the stage. Behind her was Michael, looking genuinely surprised, which meant he hadn't been fully prepared for a public announcement. "Michael McAllister," Harrison continued, "has shown exceptional dedication, innovative thinking, and a commitment to excellence that exemplifies the Pinnacle financial standard." The crowd applauded. Michael's face was glowing. I could see the moment he'd been dreaming about his whole career. Senior Vice President at 38 years old. It was a legitimate achievement, but it was built on a foundation of lies. "Michael," Harrison said, "please come up." Michael walked to the stage. He was moving slowly, soaking in the moment, his hand occasionally touching people's shoulders as he passed. That's when Marcus moved. Marcus was professional. He wore a dark suit that made him blend in perfectly. He approached Michael with calm purpose, and he was there when Michael reached the stage steps. "Michael McAllister?" Marcus said. Michael turned. "Yes." "You're being served," Marcus said, handing him the manila envelope. The room went absolutely silent. For a moment, Michael just stood there, staring at the envelope like it was something dangerous. "What is this?" he asked, his voice small. "Divorce petition," Marcus said quietly. "From your wife. You've been served." That's when everything changed. Michael's hand went to his mouth. His face went from celebratory to shock to something darker, something like rage. He turned toward the crowd, still holding the envelope, and for a moment I thought he might actually tear it apart and deny what was happening. But he didn't. Instead, he looked around the ballroom, at his boss, at his colleagues, at Victoria, whose face had gone completely white, and then his eyes found me. I was standing by the entrance, still visible, still present. I didn't look away. For about 3 seconds, we just looked at each other across that ballroom, and I saw him understand. This wasn't random. This wasn't vindictive. This was deliberate, planned, executed with precision. This was someone who knew exactly what he'd done, choosing to face the consequences. "Excuse me," Michael said to Harrison. Then he turned to the crowd. "I need to. I'm going to step out for a moment." He didn't create a scene. He didn't yell. He didn't try to deny it or explain it away. He just left, clutching that manila envelope like it was a bomb that had detonated in his hands. Harrison looked utterly confused. He looked at Sarah Chin. They exchanged glances that said, "What the hell just happened?" But I already knew what would happen next. Within minutes, everyone in that ballroom would be opening their phones. Within an hour, everyone in Michael's office would know. By Monday morning, everyone in his industry would know. Michael McAllister, the newly promoted senior vice president, had just been publicly served divorce papers at his promotion party. And the only logical conclusion anyone could draw was that there was a very good reason for such a drastic action. I left the ballroom before Michael came back. I walked out to the parking lot, handed my valet ticket to an attendant, and sat in my car. My hands were shaking, but not with fear or guilt. With clarity, or maybe I was just tensed with all of that heat. With the knowledge that I'd done the thing I was supposed to do, that I'd been honest on my terms, in a way that couldn't be revised or rewritten. I felt a sudden peace and calm creep through my body. The next 48 hours, Michael tried to call me 7 times that night. I didn't answer. He showed up at the house around midnight. I didn't let him in. I spoke to him through the closed door. "We need to talk," he said. "Everything we need to discuss will happen through our lawyers," I said. "Sarah, please. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "And so does everyone in that ballroom." He was silent for a moment. Then, "This is cruel. You've humiliated me in front of my entire firm." "You humiliated yourself," I said. "You did that for over a year. I just made sure you had to face it instead of pretending it wasn't happening." "I love you," he said. And maybe he did. Maybe people are capable of loving someone and betraying them simultaneously. Maybe love and dishonesty can coexist. But that wasn't my problem to solve anymore. "Goodbye, Michael," I said. And I went to bed. Michael stayed in a hotel that night. And for the next week, he moved his things into a rental apartment. David handled all communication through legal channels. The divorce papers had listed everything: the infidelity, the financial manipulation, the public nature of the affair. Michael's lawyer called David 2 days later and asked if we could negotiate. "My client is willing to settle," they said. "He admits to the infidelity. He'll accept the property division." "What about the $47,000? David asked. "He'll reimburse that amount within 30 days. And that was it. Michael agreed to every single term we'd proposed. No fight, no negotiation, no attempt to rewrite the narrative. Because he couldn't. Because everyone who mattered already knew the truth. The divorce was finalized in 6 months. It could have taken longer, but Michael didn't contest anything. When David told me it was final, I cried. My tears was honestly mixed with sadness and relief. The kind where you've been holding your breath underwater, and you finally break the surface, but then somehow you miss the underwater. I got the house. I got the accounts. I got the reimbursement for the $47,000. I got my life back. So that's what happened. But here's the part that matters most. What happened next? For Michael, he didn't lose his job immediately, but the promotion didn't stick. Within 3 months, he was reassigned to a different department with a lateral move. Same title, less prestige, less responsibility. Victoria was transferred to a different office entirely. The firm couldn't technically fire them for an affair. It's not illegal, and plenty of companies have policies about workplace relationships. But they could reassign them, and they did. More importantly, the firm's leadership made it clear that the promotion had been premature. Michael was no longer considered partnership material. He'd plateaued, and everyone knew why. He tried to find a similar position at other firms, but his reputation preceded him. Finance is a small world. Everyone knew about the divorce papers at the promotion party. Most people assumed there was substance to it. He eventually took a position at a smaller firm in a different state. Last I heard, he was doing okay. Not great. Not like he would have been if he'd just been honest. But okay. I don't hate him anymore. That requires too much energy. But I also don't regret what I did, because it was necessary. For me, selling the house took 8 months. It sold for more than we'd paid for it, which meant I had a substantial nest egg after paying off the remaining mortgage. I used some of that to take a break from work. 3 months off. Real time to process what had happened, what I'd allowed to happen, and what I needed to do differently moving forward. I went to therapy. I recommend this to anyone who's been betrayed by someone they trusted. It's not weak. It's necessary. I reconnected with friends I'd isolated myself from during the marriage. Friends who'd watched me disappear into Michael's world and were relieved to see me resurface. I didn't date for a year. I just lived. I cooked for myself. I read books. I took walks without my phone. I remembered what it felt like to be comfortable in my own presence. When I was ready, I decided I'd start dating again. I'd date someone honest. Someone who communicates. Someone who won't ask me to diminish myself to make room for their ego. Today, I'm in a relationship with someone who actually respects me. And I respect myself enough to recognize the difference. Now, I know some of you are going to say what people always say in these situations. You were too harsh. You could have confronted him privately. You should have given him a chance to explain. And to that I say this, I gave Michael plenty of chances. I gave him a chance when I found the first message. I gave him a chance when he lied about San Francisco. I gave him a chance when he stole from our joint account. I gave him a chance every time he gaslit me for questioning his behavior. The only thing I didn't give him was the chance to control my response. Some of you will also say I'm vindictive, that serving papers at his party was cruel and calculated. And I'll tell you, I don't disagree. It was calculated. But calculated isn't the same as wrong. Calculated means I thought about what I was doing. Calculated means I made a choice based on information, not emotion. And with the level of hurt he made me pass through with his escapades, every bit of the justice served was deserved. Was it harsh? Yes. But it was harsh because the situation required it. You don't respond to betrayal with kindness. That's not healing. That's just continuing to accept disrespect. The harshness was proportional. And that matters. What I won't apologize for is choosing myself. I won't apologize for refusing to protect someone who hurt me. I won't apologize for being honest in a way that made my pain impossible to ignore. People sometimes confuse kindness with complicity. They think if you're nice, if you don't make a scene, if you keep quiet, you're the better person. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop being convenient for other people. That's what the divorce papers at the promotion party represented. Not cruelty, not revenge, just honesty. Pure, undeniable public honesty. And Michael had to face it, not alone, not where he could spin it, but surrounded by the people whose opinion actually mattered. That's the thing about the truth. It doesn't care about your promotion party. It doesn't care about your reputation. It just sits there, waiting for you to acknowledge it. And when you finally do, it's almost always harder than it would have been if you'd just been honest from the beginning. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Was it too harsh to serve divorce papers at his promotion party? I could ask you another way. Was it too harsh for him to betray me repeatedly and expect me to keep protecting his image? Was it too harsh for him to steal from our joint account and gaslight me when I asked about it? Was it too harsh for him to publicly humiliate me in front of his colleagues and expect me to show up and smile anyway? The moral question isn't about my choice. It's about his choices. It's about whether any of us have the right to expect someone to keep covering for our dishonesty. The answer is no. We don't. And sometimes the kindest thing we can do is refuse. If you've been in a situation like this, if you've been betrayed and gaslit and manipulated, I want you to know something. You don't owe the person who hurt you a private, gentle confrontation. You don't owe them the opportunity to control the narrative. You owe yourself honesty. You owe yourself a life where you're not constantly shrinking to accommodate someone else's lies. And if that truth makes other people uncomfortable, that's not your problem to solve. That's on them. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe. We post new stories of justice, malicious compliance, and people finally deciding enough is enough every single day. And let me know in the comments, do you think I was too harsh? Or do you think Michael got exactly what he deserved? I'll be reading your comments all week. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one.